COVID, whether it's PPE, the shortages of personal protection equipment, problems over test and tracing, problems over the NHS app that the Prime Minister told us would be world-beating.
Yeah, but I think the main two things are firstly the response to the Dominic Cummings scandal.
Yeah.
We saw a big shift in the poll in that, and then secondly the exam, the results, the exam results over the past couple of weeks. Everything else matters, but none of those things matter anywhere near as much as the government's response to these two events, which do seem to have shifted the polling numbers.
And just to remind people, Dominic Cummings, of course, was the Prime Minister's chief advisor. He was the man who drove to Durham with his child and his wife, because he thought they were going to go down with COVID, and then drove off to the beauty spot apparently to test his eyesight, where most of us might have just gone to Specsavers. That had real cut through.
Yes, both of those events had real cut through. I think if you want to find good news in the polling for the government, we talked about the bad news, it is still important to remember that they do still lead the Labour Party in the polls. And despite everything, despite sort of taking that hit on competence, when it comes to the issue of the economy, which is still going to be a big part of the debate in the coming years, the Conservatives still hold a massive lead over the Labour Party on who's best placed to handle the economy. So there's some good news for them in there as well, but their incredible polling that they were seeing earlier in the year and in the run-up to the general election last year isn't looking so good anymore.
And just finally on the Prime Minister, his own personal ratings, he's now fallen behind, I think, Keir Starmer in who is seen to be the most viable, the most reliable as Prime Minister.
Yes, so if you ask the country who do you think would make the best Prime Minister, increasingly we're starting to see polls that say, actually, I think that I prefer Keir Starmer to Boris Johnson. And something else we had out this afternoon, we asked the public, would you think the Prime Minister should have cut his holiday short?
I'm glad you asked that,
given
yeah.
the exam results, 53%, the majority of the country, say they think he should have done, just 30% say that they think he shouldn't have cut his holiday short.
All he had to do was a simple conversation into his telephone, put it up on social media, done. At least he could have said something, don't you think? Would have helped?
Well, I think that the government is going to have to start to care a lot more about how they look competent and look like they're on top of things. And if they don't get on top of that, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for them. And that slide we've seen for the Conservatives in the polling is only going to continue.
Chris Curtis, a political research manager at YouGov. Well, there we are. It's in their own poll. They asked the question. I didn't put them up to the question. They asked it themselves. 53% of people asked by YouGov, should he have cut short the holiday to address the exam situation? And only 30% said no. So that's a pretty big margin. I still don't think he should have come back. He should have said something. Let's carry on with the calls. Let's go to Elaine in Bayswater. Are you Elaine or Elena?
I'm Elena.
Elena, Bayswater. You're very welcome, Elena.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I don't think Boris deserves a holiday.
Right.
Because at every crisis, where is he? You know, what effort has he put in? You know, has he considered the decisions he's made about who runs the country? Apparently not. Apparently, in spite of the mess, you know, on the exams, you know, we still have a secretary for a minister for education, you know, whose background experience was as a fireplace salesman.
I know. He's hopeless.
You know, he's had a chance at every turn. You know, when the COVID, AIDS and disasters were taking place, you know, he could have considered bringing in the assistance, for example, of an experienced Minister for Health. Who's also run his own business. I'm talking about Jeremy Hunt. I mean, as far as I can see, he's done absolutely nothing except sort of talk about world beating this and world beating that.
Right, but you don't think he's ever when would you ever let him have a holiday, Elena?
Well, when he's done a bit of serious work.
All right, that's Elena. She takes a very harsh view there. As for Jeremy Hunt, yes, very experienced, the longest-serving Secretary of State for Health, who did nothing to prepare the country for the pandemic. Some of those warnings about pandemic preparation were on Jeremy Hunt's watch, I'm afraid. He's now the chairman of the House of Commons Health Select Committee and regularly piles in to the government over its handling of the pandemic. fair play, entitled to criticise. But the question is to be asked, what did you do when you were Secretary of State, Mr Hunt? Let's carry on with the calls. Dan's in Horsham. Hello, Dan.
Hi Andrew, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. What do you think, Dan?
I do think that Boris has been very much an absentee Prime Minister from the start of this crisis, with the fact that he missed 5 Cobra meetings on something that, clearly was going to have a worldwide and national impact. And I don't disagree that he doesn't necessarily deserve a break, but I think to go to Scotland and be so remote is fairly irresponsible when he's got Chequers, where, he could rest, relax, but still kind of be in touch with matters of state and do what you suggested, which is at the very least make a public announcement.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem with the current cabinet is there's absolutely no will amongst any of them to ever show any contrition.
I think the Secretary of State for Education did apologise in the end, Dan, but it took quite a long time to get there. I understand about Chequers, but I suppose, to be fair, he's been Prime Minister now since June. Holidaying in Chequers would seem a bit like a busman's holiday. He goes there every weekend, and I guess the levers of power are there. Everything is there. Your officials can be there very quickly. It wouldn't really be a proper break, would it?
Well, you can say that, and in any normal circumstances, I might be inclined to agree with you, but we are not living in normal times.
That's true.
So the opportunity to at least have some R&R in a relatively idyllic country surroundings that Chequers quite clearly offers has got to be a compromise at a time when at any point you might actually be required to have your finger on the button.
Yeah. When he comes back, do you think he's going to be invigorated and raring to go and just the man for the job?
That's what he'll tell us, because his hubris always does, but let's face it, I think most people now believe and are now aware that he's never been the man for the job.
I don't know if most people believe that, Dan. I think some do. Dan, great call. That's Dan in Horsham. I'm Andrew Pearce. I'm in for Rachel Johnson. She's off this week. She's having a well-deserved break. So I'll be carrying on from 7 in my normal time. The time is now 6:45, so headlines with Bill Overton.
A ban on evictions in England and Wales brought in for the COVID crisis is being extended by 4 weeks. Restrictions now mean different households can't meet in Oldham, Pendle and Blackburn. Brexit talks between the UK and EU agree on one thing: there's still no progress. The weather, more showers but lighter winds over southern England, Wales and the west tonight. Clearer skies in Scotland and a low of 10 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler. It's crawling on the M11 northbound from the M25 towards junction 7 for Harlow because of an accident. Only one lane is open. On the M25 itself, there are queues anti-clockwise from junction 13 for Staines towards